So I want to talk about one of the most critical aspects of keeping a system secure, and that's keeping your software up to date. Keeping your dependencies, your binaries, your databases, your infrastructure up to date is absolutely essential to staying secure. It's also great for reducing technical debt and maintenance overhead, but for me, security is the killer reason. Old software has known vulnerabilities and attackers will exploit it. Simple as that. Keeping software up to date is the main reason why Chainguard images have low to zero numbers of vulnerabilities. One thing I find kind of amazing though, is that there isn't more of a standardized first-class way of keeping container images up to date in Kubernetes. And instead, we have a bunch of different approaches that are dependent on how your organization uses Kubernetes, and in particular, what tooling it uses alongside, such as Helm and Argo CD. In this video, I'm going to explain the issues around updating images and what you need to take into consideration when choosing a solution. But first, let's take a look at the problem. To the terminal. Okay, so I have a small kind or Kubernetes in Docker cluster running here, and it has some containers that I've been playing with. Now I can run this kubectl command here to get the names of all the images running in the cluster. So all it's going to do is get all pods from all namespaces, pull out the init containers or the containers and the image field, plus a little bit of massaging the output. So that's what we have here. Now, you have different formats for specifying the version of images. So here we see one that's on latest, but we also have semver being very common without a V, but there's also seems to be some that are date-based, which is always fun. Now, the big question is, how do I know if these containers are up to date or not? And there's not really a fantastic solution here. I could go on Google to see if Push Gateway version 1.8.0 is the latest stable release or not, but obviously that's not really scalable for everything. So the most common solution, as far as I can tell, is to go and ask the registry. So what happens is people will set up automations or use tooling that basically polls the registry that these images come from and ask it for a list of all the tags. And then they try and rank the tags according to semver to figure out if there's a new version available. I should say some registries also support webhooks. So in some cases, you'll be able to get a callback when a new version is released. But that's generally only for your own images. So it's not for third-party images and base images, which you're likely also interested in. But one tool I did find is called Keel, and I think it's worth looking at as it highlights some of these points and shows some of the potential solutions and trade-offs. So Keel is a Kubernetes operator that takes care of updating images, and it's installed in this little kind cluster. To show you how it works, I've got a simple Nginx deployment here, and we've got Nginx set to version 1.26.0, which is a slightly old version. And note that I'm using the official Docker Hub image here. Now, the way you configure Keel is you set annotations. So in this case, I've set an annotation to say, hey, I want to update when either the minor or the patch version updates, and you should poll the registry for updates every 10 seconds. Every 10 seconds is quite often, but it's perfect for a demo. In production, you'd probably have a lower value. Okay, so let's apply this YAML. And then we'll quickly need to see here. So we have Nginx 1.26 deployed. If I look at it again, we can see down here there's some login which tells me that Keel has run. It's replaced the image with this version 1.27. So it's applied this update as I asked it to. Now, those of you that know Nginx might have noticed a bit of a gotcha here. So let's go back to the YAML. We've told it to update on minor versions, but some of you might be aware that Nginx has a mainline and a stable version. So 1.26 was actually a stable version, and we've updated to the mainline version. That's kind of a peculiarity of Nginx. Not all projects work the same way. In this case, I guess what you need to do is set the policy to patch, which would mean it would update from 1.26.0 to 1.26.1, but wouldn't update the minor version. And then you need to figure out some other way of figuring out when to update your minor version. Other things that are worth mentioning are approvals and notifications. So Keel has support for not deploying things immediately, but asking for approval before something gets deployed to production. In this case, it integrates with Slack, so a notification will appear in the Slack channel asking for somebody to approve before the change is deployed to production or testing or wherever. And that's pretty much all that I want to cover about Keel. Now, I'm not recommending Keel necessarily. As I alluded to in the beginning, most organizations are going to have a solution tied to whatever tooling they've already chosen, especially if you've gone down the GitOps route. But what I would say is that you need to be thinking about some of the issues and features raised by Keel. So for example, what do you update on? Is it major, minor, or patch version? How do you get people to sign off or approve updates? Do you need to at all, or can you completely automate it? And is this different for different namespaces and applications? So you might want to be more careful about updating Kubernetes infrastructure containers than you are about your search functionality, for instance. And something we've not talked about is rollbacks. So what happens in the case where an update breaks or goes wrong and you want to revert to a previous version of an image? And in future videos, I'd like to dig into some of these issues and hopefully present some more best practices. But if you agree with me that keeping things up to date is important for security, please do check out Chainguard images, because we're really aggressive about keeping all our dependencies and components bang up to date. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'm really interested in this topic, so please do let me know about your own approaches and thoughts on this.